Chapter 11 Shocked Hawkeye My Hawk. 4 collections, 4 flowers, 4 evaluation, 4 rewards. Is this all your power? The eagle eyes in the distance, the golden pupils tightened immediately, and the complexion was solemn. Ulquiorra's calm water-like voice broke the situation. The dense and persistent dust and mist floating on the deep pit slowly flowed, and a black figure gradually became clear. Ulquiorra walked out of the deep pit with 36 beers in silence, gloomy and gloomy. His eyes glanced at the beer in his hand. Your slash almost destroyed the beer bottle, so I'll be scolded. As Ulziola spoke, he opened the zipper of the white collar, and a black hole the size of a fist appeared. Looking closely, the corners of his white trench coat were tattered. The slash is not without power, at least it makes Xiaowu's clothes torn. You must know that Espada's steel skin is a near-perfect defense in the pirate world. The eagle eye in the distance, under the solemn expression, the corner of his mouth is slightly hooked again. It is obvious that Ulquiorra did not let him down. He is a swordsman who can do his best. Amazing. You shouldn't be over 20 years old, right? Hawkeye showed a satisfied look, praised unreservedly, without the slightest dissatisfaction. Maybe this is the world's #1 hungry. Ulziola didn't even draw his sword, so let him, a world-renowned #1 swordsman, cherish his talents. If this is spread out, it will definitely set off a huge wave all over the world, especially those swordsmen. They will be crazy. Don't linger, there are 5 minutes left. Ulquiorra didn't care about Hawkeye's words at all, he only cared about the task that ch11 gave him, delivering the goods to the guests within 10 minutes. But Xiaowu's words made Hawkeye's eyes widen instantly. This is the aptitude of a king. You don't need anyone's protection. Do you have to rely on yourself to fight a vast world? Even the sword intent is far beyond anyone I've seen. It's a beautiful jade. Hawkeye did not hesitate to praise Ulquiorra in his heart. I will remember that you are a rare powerhouse. In order to show courtesy to the swordsman, I will use all my strength to attack you. Chap. The black sword pointed to the sky. S.A. Hawkeye attacked in an instant, turning into a black afterimage. The black knife stabbed at Xiaowu, and the unparalleled sword intent gathered at the tip of the sword, urgent and fast. There was no time to react at all. The tiny black tip of the sword is like a deep singularity, as if to pierce through everything, making people tremble. I saw Ulquiorra raised his left arm with a calm face, his palm facing inward and his back facing outward. When, in an instant, a deafening metal echo shook the audience, and the black knife's extremely sharp sword tip slammed into the back of Ulquiorra's hand with infinite force, motionless. The eagle-eyed gaze of the sword wielder is incomparable. Boom! Immediately afterwards, the strong wind caused by the speed of the sword suddenly erupted from behind Hawkeye. The hurricane swept the surroundings, and a large number of trees and rocks were directly smashed into slag. Chin. Hawkeye withdrew the sword, and the back of the pale hand with the tip of the sword left Xiaowu didn't even show a single scar. Immediately afterwards, Hawkeye, who had come to the front, naturally used his best melee sword skills as a swordsman. Ashura Nighthawk. Hawkeye's low and magnetic voice echoed in Xiaowu's ears, and he saw the black knife swaying, Chen in front of Hawkeye. The world was dark in a trance. Hawkeye was like an Ashura evil ghost from hell at this moment, and his body was filled with light. Purple-black flames, sharp eyes. Hawkeye unleashed his strongest blow, which was also the sword move he used to kill the world's #1 swordsman in the previous generation. Ashura, Nighthawk. The so-called way of Ashura refers to the way of Ashura who has endured all the hardships but is not bored, cares nothing, and doesn't even care about his life, just to enjoy the fun of battle. This is also the reason why Zoro is so highly valued in the four seas, where Eagle Eye is as strong as a forest. Because the two of them are walking the same way. I saw a strange purple-black glow suddenly emitting from the black blade, and these glows rose like fire to create countless illusory purple-black eagles, each of which contained a terrifying sword intent capable of splitting warships. Up! The Eagle Eye attacked instantly, and countless nightingales spread their wings on the black knife, as if the entire black knife had turned into a black eagle. Boom boom boom! A sword light suddenly bloomed, instantly wrapping everything on the island, and the dull sound of the ground kept bursting out. The strong sword wind raged on the entire Kragana island, like an invisible meat grinder. A large number of trees and rocks on the ground were swept up to the sky, and the blades of the wind smashed these debris to slag, melted in the wind, and the island suddenly became a forbidden area of life. The countless wind blades have not dissipated, at least in recent months, because this is my hawk's strongest blow, enough to have an impact on the surrounding things. Those remaining wind blades, every wisp is enough to make ordinary seas thieves are deadly. Whoosh, whoosh. A tired figure gradually appeared, and countless wind blades that could be caught by the naked eye were wandering in the air around him. It's been a long time since I fought with all my strength. Chap! Eagle Eye looked tired, took back the black knife, and looked around. The island that was originally covered with lush vegetation is now full of scars, and there are huge knife scars everywhere. That kid, not seeing Ulquiorra, Hawkeye felt a little disappointed, even a little regretful, but when he thought that Ulquiorra had only received his full thrust with the back of his hand, Hawkeye couldn't help but be shocked. Without using armament haki, he was able to take it without a single injury. He was quite sure that no one in this world could do it. What a beautiful jade! Hawkeye sighed, glancing at where Ulquiorra had stood before. What are you feeling sad about? Suddenly, a voice as calm as water came from Hawkeye's head, and I saw Ulquiorra, holding 36 snow beers in his hand, looking down at Hawkeye with a gloomy temperament like a goddess. Hawkeye's tired body suddenly froze, and his complexion changed suddenly. Whoa! He turned around suddenly, his shocked gaze met Ulquiorra's green eyes in the sky, and his mouth subconsciously opened slightly. How? How is it possible? Hawkeye saw Ulquiorra standing in the air unscathed, and his mouth was so shocked that it was difficult to speak normally. Guest, you have the last 30 seconds. Ulquiorra said lightly, the beer in his hand fell naturally, a graceful arc. The eagle eye caught it steadily, looked down at it, it was really full of beer. But what is snow beer new product? 1.5 million Baileys, 5-star praise. Ulquiorra looked down indifferently, with a slightly heavy tone. The eagle eye below quickly raised his head. Da. He didn't know what to say, and there was a response from the bottom of his throat. I saw Ulquiorra nodded slightly, his fingers tapped in the void, entered the black cavity, and then disappeared. The eagle eye below is even more shocked. Holding snow beer, he stared blankly at the sky where Ulquiorra disappeared. The autumn wind is bleak, a generation of great swordsmen, ignorant. 4 collections, 4 flowers, 4 evaluation, 4 rewards. Today there is no monthly pass, this emperor is heartbroken. Chapter 12 Eagle Eye Chain / 4 collection. Ask for flowers. Ask for evaluation. Ask for a reward. After Ulziola left, Hawkeye stopped for a long time and seemed to have not recovered. That guy. When the hell? He went to the sky. And he seems to be breaking through the sky. Could it be that his swordsmanship has reached the realm of breaking through the void? Even I only touched a little bit. It's just a threshold. My hawk's heart was full of horror, and he couldn't help but laugh at himself, but he didn't even draw his sword. And he has spent a lot of physical strength to cast the strongest blow, but it only damaged the corner of the opponent's clothes. In this battle, he lost. Although he didn't show it accurately, the cloud mud-like strength gap between the two sides has been vividly reflected. The world's largest swordsman lost very thoroughly. Ever since I ascended the throne of the world's greatest swordsman, I have been looking for various opponents, just to be defeated. Today, it seems that my swordsmanship still has a long way to go. A young man from Sabayati land, man, I remember you, and one day, I Dracula my hawk will surpass you. Hawkeye looked at the beer in his arms and was a reflection. The appearance of Xiaohu also made him realize his own shortcomings. At the same time, it also opened a door for him in the field of Kendo. In the picture, at the age of 5, he defeated all the students of the gym with only a wooden sword. At the age of 13, he went out to the world with an ordinary iron sword and visited famous teachers. At the age of 15, he won one of the 50 craftsmen of the good and fast swords. Known as the Eye, at the age of 23, he was one of the 21 workers of the great knife. He became famous all over the world. In the same year, he witnessed the execution of Roger, the Pirate King, and was deeply shocked. At the age of 30, he won one of the 12 supreme swordsmen, and challenged the world's largest swordsman at the same time, and obtained the Black Sword Knight from his hands. Since then, he has become famous all over the world, and after reigning for 12 years, countless swordsmen from all over the world did not dare to compete with him. Today's defeat can be said to be his first defeat in more than 10 years, and it is still a crushing defeat. Hawkeye is not discouraged, he is the banner of an era. It is because of the Ashura spirit that became stronger and stronger with the Vietnam War. He is only 42 years old and in his prime. The tired body seems to have returned to the state of studying around when he was young, and he is in good spirits. Happy. Hawkeye has a satisfied look on his face. Why can't a strong person have a glass of beer at such a happy time? Boo! Hawkeye took out a bottle of snow beer at random, and flipped the tin lid off with his thumb. Grumble rumble! Head up and pour! Hey ha! Good wine! Happy! For some reason, Hawkeye suddenly burst into infinite pride and howled. He hadn't experienced this kind of bravery in the world for many years. Why is this wine so exciting? It seems to be able to lead my blood to spurt, and the previous feeling of exhaustion has disappeared in an instant. Eagle Eye suddenly came to the spirit, and unconsciously his skin also had a blush, but because he is a world-class powerhouse, he did not produce any blood flow too fast and emit white steam, because of his own physical fitness tough enough. Suddenly, Hawkeye, who was addicted and slightly drunk, his footsteps began to sway. He put down the extra snow beer in his hand, picked up a bottle, and took another sip. I saw his eyebrows stand upright, and he closed his eyes as if feeling the changes in his body. Step, 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 step. Seeing his steps swaying from side to side, his body also began to sway slightly, pitching back and forth, tilting left and right, looking like he was drunk, and the swinging amplitude was getting bigger and bigger, and then, my hawk suddenly opened his glasses, a pair of golden twin pupils burst out with dazzling light, and flashed by. Chap! Hawkeye, who took out the black knife, was still drunk, and the black knife followed him. He picked up snow beer with the other hand and poured it into his mouth. The empty bottle was thrown away at will, and with a click, it was easily hit by a residual wind blade. Broke in. Whoa! I saw Hawkeye staggered forward suddenly, and just as he was about to fall, his body suddenly changed the angle very strangely and stood up. FK me! a bottle of snow beer ripped you over. This big swordsman is too weak, right? Hey, it seems a bit wrong. Hawkeye's footsteps are empty and real and empty, his body seems to be skewed left and right, but he stands like a tumbler, and the black knife in his hand keeps changing its trajectory in the air like a dragon. This guy is playing cheap. This guy is actually comprehending sword tricks. And what's special is the drunk sword. Choke. I saw Hawkeye's drunken, rosy complexion, noble like a prince, the black knife in his hand was as fast as thunder, and he instantly opened the lids of all the snow beer remaining on the ground, turned his body and turned out a sword flower against the beer, and a bottle of snow beer was steady. Get started. Drunken drinking and lifting pots are extremely powerful. Grumpy. Hawkeye's head held high as he swallowed a bottle of snowflakes, and his heart suddenly surged with pride. The swing of the body suddenly increased, and the black knife in his hand did not stay idle. The sword track of Wan Ruolong seemed to be soft and powerless, but in fact, the knife was deadly and it was impossible to guard against it. Drink. Hawkeye was so drunk that he threw the empty bottle into the sky. Drunk toss with chain slash. I saw Hawkeye still swaying and drunk in the air, and the black knife in his hand randomly slashed 8 silver crescent-shaped slashes in 8 directions around the body. After being endowed with spirituality, it spun, and the 8 moon slashes changed their trajectory in unison, drawing a beautiful arc in the air, and slashed towards the most incredible wine bottle above. Boom! The slashes collided, and countless silver light spots were splashed out, as gorgeous as the falling of a galaxy. Hawkeye, who returned to the ground, seemed to have vented just now, and the alcohol content in his body also dropped and returned to normal. This snow beer. It's really amazing. It can improve my knowledge of kendo so quickly in a moment. The state just now is really mysterious. Could it be that the boy grew up drinking snow beer since he was a child? Is that why you have such profound strength? Hawkeye was horrified in his heart, and he was shocked when he recalled the state of ecstasy just now. I used to focus on physical strength and sword skills, but I didn't realize that I still have a spiritual realm. No wonder I always felt that my strength could not be improved. I am so grateful to the bar owner and the delivery boy. Glancing at the dozens of bottles of snow beer left on the ground, Hawkeye can't wait to enter that ecstasy again. For a time, the sword lights spread all over the island of Kragana, and the slashes that destroyed the mountains and the ground were sprayed wildly, and a layer of grey dust shrouded the huge island. P.S. For collection. Ask for flowers. Ask for evaluation. Ask for a reward. Chapter 13 Rayleigh visits. For collection. Ask for flowers. Ask for evaluation. Ask for a reward. The picture returns to the 19GR bar in the illegal zone of Sabayati Archipelago. In the empty bar, Ch11 and Ulquira are sitting opposite each other. Ch11 looked at Xiao Wu, whose face was paralyzed, and felt a sense of tastelessness. Now that the 2 opportunities for poverty alleviation have been used up, the next step is to wait. According to the time, at the speed of Whitebeard's group, they should be able to reach the Fishmen Island tomorrow night, and they can reach Sabayati land from the deep sea on the last day. Ch11 didn't pay much attention to Hawkeye. After all, he was alone. Lonely, the purchasing power is far less than the Whitebeard pirates. System, I already have 2 5-star reviews and 3 million Baileys. What the hell are you talking about opening a branch? Ch11 communicated with the system with some doubts. During the period when Xiaohu delivered food, he also had a preliminary understanding of the business system. The content in it was to refresh the 3 views of Ch11. The product of the industry, and as long as a storefront is established in the pirate world, it can be exchanged through the system without consumption. Everything that is ordinary in the real world has a powerful effect here. For example, Snowflake, Tsingtao, and Pineapple beer at this stage. These three common beers are good examples. Mr. Yet, when you complete the sales of 10 million Baileys in the first month, you already have the strength to open a branch. As for which store to open and what to sell, it is up to Mr. Yet to decide on his own. The system has a point mall. Every time there is a 5-star positive review, the system will increase Mr. Yi's reputation by a little point, and the function of the points is to unlock the product. After the unlock is successful, the product can be replenished indefinitely. Then I only have 2 points now. ch11 hurriedly opened the system product points interface and found that there were only 2 points, and above the points mall, there is Bailey Mall, a large black template with clothing logos, real estate logos, bank logos, car logos, ship logos, military industry logos, game logos. There are a lot of densely packed, and below these dark icons are also marked the Baileys that need to be opened, and the prices are exaggerated one by one. And on these templates, only a solitary beer bottle logo shines brightly. I only lit up the wine business in a month, there's so much left. ch11 was shocked when he saw this. This is the rhythm of building a business empire. But it seems that this system is called a business empire. Yet, Mr. Yet, building a business district is a huge project. You can't waste your life anymore, hurry up and act. The system seemed to sense ch11's fighting spirit, and his tone became high. Then, ch11 immediately poured a basin of cold water on the system. Take action. As the future business emperor, I still need to take action. The system was stunned for a while, and after a while, Kide said, Mr. Yi's slap in the face is successful, and the system will be rewarded with 10 points. ch11 was stunned after hearing this, and retorted to the system with an angry expression, are you looking down on me, Yet, someone you want to kill me with just 10 points? Squeak. Suddenly, the hoarse sound of a wooden door opening broke the calm in the bar. ch11 also retracted the system interface and looked at the door. I saw a dusty old man with silver hair and beard, wearing glasses and a straight scar on his right eye, walked in, wearing a dark green old cloak, and a strong physique. I saw him walking towards the bar, while taking off his cloak, revealing a long silver curly hair, sitting in front of the bar, tapping lightly on the table with his fingers. ch11 was stunned for a moment. This ghost place finally had a visitor. Leaving Ulquiera to sit quietly in his seat, ch11 returned to the bar, finally able to exercise the majesty of the boss, inexplicably a little excited. Come on, something. ch11 glanced at the old man in front of him with his head lowered and the mirror glowing with white light, and said solemnly, after the system's half-month CEO training course, ch11 also learned to be a high-cold president. A bottle of rum. The old man's answer was also full of anger, and he seemed to be a weather-beaten guy. Rum is a local spirit in the pirate world. It is sold very widely. It can be seen in almost every small town. Loved by pirates and marine. No rum. ch11 was stunned for a moment. Since he never dared to walk out of the store, he didn't know the market outside. He didn't have any alcohol that could be seen everywhere, only 3 kinds of beer from the previous life. Here's a bottle of whiskey. The old man said solemnly without raising his head. The whiskey in his mouth is also a well-selling alcohol. No whiskey. When Rayleigh heard the words, his body paused slightly, and the mirror gloss of white light slowly flowed, revealing a smile. I just robbed the slave owner who bought himself. I didn't expect that he couldn't even drink wine if he had money. Rayleigh laughed secretly, raised his head slowly, with a smile on his face, resting his sturdy chin in one hand, glanced at ch11 in front of him, pointing to the pineapple beer in the first row on the shelf behind him, and said lightly, "Well then give me a shot of this, it looks pretty good too." Rayleigh smiled, the deep wrinkles at the corners of his eyes were like furrows gullies, and ch11's eyes twitched immediately. Pluton Rayleigh, how did he show up here? Did he auction himself off to rob slave owners again? That's why he's in this illegal zone. ch11's heart trembled slightly, and he took out a bottle of pineapple beer and gave it to him. After slowing down, ch11 looked up and down at Rayleigh, as if he saw countless golden Baileys flying in the sky. Snapped. Guessed. Isn't it insulting to drink such a small beer for your size? Come on, I have alcohol here. Pay after drinking it. ch11 didn't know where he got an exaggerated version of the beer mug, which was a bit bigger than the rice cooker, and enthusiastically opened more than 20 bottles of snow beer for Rayleigh. Rayleigh was a little surprised, this young man changed his face so fast. Glancing at the small can of pineapple beer in his hand, Rayleigh laughed without hesitation and readily accepted ch11's proposal. Good, good. Full on top. ch11 certainly won't be polite to Rayleigh, this guy is Roger's deputy captain, who knows how many treasures he has hidden. After a while, a barrel of snow beer worth 1,000,000 Bailey was placed in front of Rayleigh. Rayleigh looked at the golden beer and the rising white bubbles in front of him with satisfaction. A strong fragrance of beer lingered on the tip of his nose like white and soft training horses. Suddenly, his index finger moved, and Rayleigh leaned slightly and took a deep breath. With a sip, he sighed with satisfaction, "What a fragrant wine! The materials are exquisite. It should be the selection of high-quality barley malt and wheat malt as raw materials, the ancient method is perfect, the fermentation period is more than 30 days, and it is brewed with a unique yeast method. The process is unique, full-bodied, hazy, cloudy, with a pleasing cloudy appearance. Excellent." And ch11 in the bar looked at Rayleigh with a black question mark on his face. "Isn't it snow beer? Have you never had such a high-quality beer? However, it is necessary to cooperate with those who should cooperate, after all, it is business." Yo! Expert! ch11 pretended to be surprised. "P.S. Please collect. Ask for flowers. Ask for evaluation. Ask for a reward." Chapter 14 Shocking Rayleigh. For collection. Ask for flowers. Ask for evaluation. Ask for a reward. Yo, expert! ch11 pretended to be exclaimed, with a smile of surprise on his face, as if he had been selling wine for many years but no one cared about it, but now he is as happy as he has finally met a customer who knows the goods. Rayleigh waved his hand, Shan smiled and said, "It's okay, it's just that when I was young, I traveled around the world and drank a lot of wine, so I'm not really an expert." Rayleigh is very low-key, but he is also very forthright. Even though ch11 looks very young, he doesn't put on airs, and his words about traveling around the world are even more invisible. I dare to ask how many people in the whole pirate world can do it. Traveling around the world, and saying so lightly. ch11 smiled without saying a word. Zhang worried that there is no reason to ask for the next bill, since you took the initiative to boast about this beer so awesome, then it's no wonder someone. I saw Rayleigh holding a large glass of wine mixed with 24 snow beers in both hands and pouring it into his mouth. Grumble rumble. An astonishing amount of alcohol, even though Rayleigh is over 70 years old, his alcohol intake has not decreased at all. His throat muscles are shaking, and the wine glass in his hand is slowly raised. Hiss ha! Happy! Good wine! This beer is at least in the top 10 of all the wines I drank in the first half of my life. Ha ha ha, it's strong. Snapped. Rayleigh was very satisfied after drinking, and he did not hesitate to praise Snow beer. He put down the glass in his hand, squinted his eyes and raised his head, as if he was thinking about something, and saw that his old skin began to turn red and plump. ch11 nodded with satisfaction, and secretly opened 24 more snowflakes, pouring them into the wine glass. This old guy is obviously hooked, ha ha ha, take the opportunity to make a fortune on him, Lao Zi will have the money to open a branch. ch11 smirked and made plans in his heart, pouring the beer in his hand as if he didn't want any money. I feel like I'm back when I was young, and a long-lost fighting spirit emerges in my body. Even the beating of my heart is ringing in my ears. Good wine. It can already be in my heart now. Number 1. Rayleigh murmured with enjoyment on his face, his limbs rumbling with warmth, as comfortable as he was sunbathing on the deck with Roger when he was young, and then his hand reached the glass again, raised, poured, and again it's a million Baileys. Who energetic? It's been a long time since I've had such an energetic beer. What's the name of this beer? Rayleigh's complexion is ruddy, and 24 snowflake beers are in his stomach. Although it is not much for many people, the magical effect is slowly improving Rayleigh's physique. The temperament of the whole person gradually became sharper, and even Ulquiera, who was sitting in the corner, couldn't help rolling his eyes, and glanced at Rayleigh in front of the bar. This is called Snow beer. Drinking it for a long time can improve your physique and improve your combat power during drinking. It is a must-have product for home travel. Remember to keep it at home. You are the first customer to come to the door today, and the shop is still there. A free bottle of pineapple beer worth 15 Baileys. ch11 brought a bottle of pineapple beer and put it in front of Rayleigh, and said with a smile. This guy has already drank 2 million Baileys, which is not a small amount. Let him pay the bill first. ch11 thought to himself. He still remembered that in the original book, Rayleigh often drank and gambled and made himself penniless, but when he got rich, his spending was as terrifying as running water. Rayleigh's eyes twitched suddenly, and the smile on his face froze. My cao, what kind of wine is it? It's so expensive. Just give it away. Rayleigh's heart trembled. Beer worth 150,000 Baileys. This was the first time he had heard of such an expensive beer. On ch11's smiling face, those bright black pupils trembled slightly, keenly capturing the changes in the micro-expressions on Rayleigh's face, and he felt bad. This stuff may not be worth the money. He communicated with Xiaowu on the seat at the door. Ulquiera with a calm face turned to look at ch11. ch11 winked a few times, only to see Ulquiera silently walking to the door and closing the door. The atmosphere in the bar suddenly became a little gloomy. You spent a total of 2 million Baileys, and I also gave you pineapple beer worth 15 Baileys. The store only accepts cash. ch11 showed a formulaic smile, and said neither humble nor arrogant. These business etiquettes were forcibly injected into ch11 when the system was turned on, and now his attitude is completely a standard bar owner, and every word Rayleigh cannot refute. When Rayleigh in front of the bar heard the consumption amount reported by ch11, he glanced at Ulquiera, who was in a bad mood behind him. Illegally open a bar, it really is a black shop, but your beer is really good, here is 10 Bailey. I saw Rayleigh smiled indifferently, took 10 Baileys from his waist and patted them on the bar, got up and left, and didn't forget to take the bottle of pineapple beer before leaving. Step step step. A steady sound of stomping sounded in the empty bar, and Rayleigh glanced at Ulquiera, whose face was pale in front of him, but he looked like a child, so he didn't care and walked straight away. Looking at ch11 in the bar, a few black tic-tac-toe appeared on his forehead. 10 Baileys of God Tima. Yequan's heart suddenly burst into flames. Isn't this the abuser? I can't stand it. Xiao Wu. Only Yechuan whispered in the bar. Rayleigh, who happened to pass by Ulquiera, also heard it, and his eyes under the white light lenses glanced at the shorty beside him indifferently, not paying much attention. Buzz. Buzz. Sudden. After Ulquiera got Yequan's order, a strong riotsu erupted. The riotsu, who was supposed to be enveloped at a high speed, was suppressed by this magical bar, only inside the bar. Rayleigh's face was pale and horrified in an instant. The front foot he just raised suddenly stagnated, and his body staggered and almost fell. Rayleigh silently retracted his foot and looked directly at Ulquiera. Rayleigh's heart is full of shock, his expression is horrified, his body is as heavy as an island, and the clothes behind him are already soaked in cold sweat. Tread! 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 Yechuan silently walked from the bar to Rayleigh, his face lost the enthusiasm of hospitality before, but an arrogant expression, just like the shopkeeper in the martial arts novels. But Rayleigh, who was restrained by this powerful riotsu, stared at Yechuan with his eyes shrunk, and his trembling eyes glanced at Ulziola again, full of surprise and shock. P.S. Flowers. I want flowers. For collection. Ask for flowers. Ask for evaluation. Ask for a reward. Is Chapter 15 Ordinary Punch. For collection. Ask for flowers. Ask for evaluation. Ask for a reward. Drinking overlord wine. Do you want to repay your debt? Pay attention to the end of the chapter. Yequan's tone is not good. There is no need to care who he is at this time, it is impossible to default. As long as he is in his own business territory, even if he is a god, Yechuan can knock him out of the altar with one punch. This setting is specially prepared to deal with those who are strong and have no money to drink. And Rayleigh had a strange look on his face, and there were thousands of doubts in his heart. What's the matter with this power that is more oppressive than Conqueror's haki? This kid in white has such a powerful strength. And the bar owner in front of him. How can he move freely under such power? The person. Just as Rayleigh shook his head, a system sound suddenly sounded in Yequan's head, ding. It is detected that the delinquents have extremely high commercial value, and it is recommended that Mr. Ye be his subordinates. Nanny, this product has extremely high commercial value. Why didn't I see it? Yechuan looked at Rayleigh, whose legs were full of hair, but since the system said so, it was 100% correct, then take it. Clatter. 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 Yechuan snapped his fingers 3 times in a row in front of the dazed Rayleigh, which woke Rayleigh, and by the way, let Xiao Wu put away riotsu. I said, as Roger's co-captain, how come you have no courage at all? Can't you come up with a mere 2 million Bailey? Yechuan asked impatiently, and didn't want to make any detours with Rayleigh, breaking the skylight to speak out. We are not pretending to be secretive. Ha 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 ha. Rayleigh suddenly raised his head and laughed, his 2 long silver curly hair trembling moving, and he laughed heroically. Yechuan couldn't guess what this guy was thinking for a while. Don't start pretending to be crazy and selling stupid, prepare to default. Yequan's heart trembled. What an interesting young man. How dare you stop me if you know the old man's name? Rayleigh's tone was slightly raised, his body was ruddy, and he was obviously still on the move, and his aura became sharper with these words. Yo hee hee, I gave you face, right? You don't give money for drinking, but you still want to brush your face. Yechuan couldn't take it any longer, his eyes were aimed at the lower back where Rayleigh had paid the money before, and he reached out with his big hand. I saw Rayleigh's backside, which made ch11 flinch. ch11 is angry. This guy, Grandmaster Conqueror's Haki, must have used perceptual colors just now. It doesn't seem to be serious. Boy, your wine is really good. It makes the old man's body seem to be back to a young age. Why don't you let the little brother beside you and me play 2 tricks? Rayleigh smiled and looked at Ulquiorra with a calm face. He wanted to challenge like Hawkeye and completely ignored ch11. I'm going, you actually call me a boy, a supporting role. Isn't this the abuser absolutely not allowed? ch11 looked at Rayleigh with a stern look on his face, and it seemed that he didn't give him any hardships. He didn't know that Yamorin was so powerful. Actually, it's not impossible if you want a free bill. ch11 said lightly, and immediately aroused Rayleigh's interest. Although he was a former pirate boss, he always followed the line of the 8th Root Army and never took any stitches from the masses, so ch11 let him free of orders all at once. Looking sideways. Oh, hee, brother, please say it. Rayleigh smiled lightly and looked at ch11 like an expert. In fact, it was because the money was not enough. The slave owner who robbed before was completely poor. He bought Rayleigh back to open up wasteland for planting. In addition, Rayleigh's label at the auction house was Old Sailor Who Loves Drinking, and the slave owner only used a few hundred. The gold coins were auctioned off, and on the way, they turned against the customer, released all the slaves of the slave owner, and distributed his property to everyone, leaving only 100,000 baileys for himself. ch11's mouth twitched, showing his snow-white teeth, staring at Rayleigh with a smirk. You stand there and let me punch 3 times. If you can bear it, 2 million drinks are free. It is good. Rayleigh didn't hesitate, not afraid of ch11's tricks, so he agreed. ch11 has a happy expression on his face. Is he a big one? President Lay is really bold. But what if you lose? ch11 asked with a sinister smile. Losing? How can this old man? Rayleigh didn't care at all, but suddenly realized that Ulquiorra next to ch11 is not weak, and that Haki like aura is very strong. Since this kid in front of him knows his identity and dares to challenge, he must have strong strength. ch11's eyes trembled slightly, capturing a trace of Rayleigh's hesitation. As expected of the old Jianghu. If you lose, it's up to you. Rayleigh smiled confidently. He is not a fruit power person. Even if ch11 is a power person, or uses a sea stone weapon, as long as his armament Haki is fully open, few people in this world can break the defense. And there is no rule against using Haki. Rayleigh looked at ch11, and estimated that he was only 19 or 20 years old, and his strength was only 200 to 300 million pirates. Mr. Lay is refreshing. If you stand up after 3 punches, you will get a free drink and a bottle of Tsingtao beer. If you can't hold it within 3 punches, you must work for me. According to the staff in our hometown bar, the salary level is 2,000 baileys a month. You need to work for 83 years. If the guests usually tip, I will not bully you, old man. The tip is 50%. ch11 said quickly. After being nurtured by the profiteer system, ch11's business level has also improved a lot, and now a huge pit is waiting for Rayleigh to jump into. Ha, whatever, come on. Rayleigh stood firm, smiling confidently, drinking snow beer and feeling like he's going to be able to shine every day. He didn't care what ch11 said after that. Oh! Are you ready? Mr. Lay is really fast. ch11 crossed his fingers, stretched his muscles and bones, his bones crackled, and just listening to the sound made him feel a little scary. FK osteoporosis. Although this profiteer system has always said that I am invincible in my own business territory, I haven't tried it yet, and I just can try it with Rayleigh. ch11 secretly measured with some anticipation in his heart. His body was controlling the strength of his punches later, otherwise he would blow up Rayleigh with one punch, and who would the 2 million Baileys look for? ch11 stood still, turning his right arm into a fist. Very ordinary. Won't you hacky? Rayleigh murmured indifferently, it seems that ch11 is overestimated. Eat my normal punch. Whoa! I saw ch11 rushing forward with a bang. P.S. The comments in the comment area are too intense. I have revised the relevant plot. The book friends can't stop it. Thank you very much for your huge reward. It is the most reward since I wrote a book. I can also correct the shortcomings. I specially built a kun sheep. If you like it, you can come in and discuss the pirate plot. I have already removed the bad comments in the comment area. Thank you for your relationship, and the code is gone. The number is related to the work. Chapter 16 Clerk. Silver Rayleigh. For collection. Ask for flowers. Ask for evaluation. Ask for a reward. Eat my normal punch. Whoa! I saw ch11 rushing forward with a bang. The right arm bows slightly to make a straight catapult. An unpretentious punch. The battle-hardened Rayleigh stood still, under the lustrous white mirror. His eyes captured every subtle movement of ch11, and the first-class perception color on his body also covered ch11 for the first time. No special abilities also not covering hacky. Does this kid want to attack me with pure physical strength? Rayleigh was slightly stunned, but as a former pirate giant, he knew that despising his opponent was a deadly act. He had seen too many proud people in the sea die at this point, so even in the face of ch11 watching it seemed like an ordinary punch, but he didn't slacken it. He took a deep breath and tightened his muscles. With the blessing of Snow Beer, the hardness of his body's surface actually reached the level of a normal Vice Admiral level armament hacky. Rayleigh was a little overjoyed. He didn't expect this Snow Beer to be so magical, but 2 million was indeed a bit expensive for him. Recalling that when he was with Roger, he didn't have a meal without tens of millions of Baileys. Excited to go out. And I saw ch11 rushing in front of Rayleigh, his body suddenly stagnant, his bowed right fist popped forward continuously, and it was no accident that this punch would bombard Rayleigh's bone. Rayleigh felt the weak fist wind, and his muscles tightened. Zhen instinctively made a defensive stance. However, ch11 looked strange, and stopped suddenly when the fist was about to reach Rayleigh's bone. Even Rayleigh couldn't help but lowered his eyebrows, but saw that ch11's fist suddenly popped out a forefinger, which flicked on his own. On the bone. Boom! A huge force came from the Hungarian bone and instantly broke the defense. The picture is like playing in slow motion. When the fingertips touch Rayleigh's body, the fingertips are the center of the circle, and the muscles are instantly sunken with ripples. With his feet off the ground, the silver whiskers trembled, and the whole person flew out like a kite with a broken string. In the eyes of outsiders, Rayleigh flew out in an instant and slammed into the bar, and the entire wooden bar was smashed by Rayleigh's burly body with a large amount of sawdust and dust mist. Crackle crackle crackle! The shelves of beer stock were bombed, and the floor was full of mixed beer and sawdust. Ulquiera behind ch11 nodded silently. Dancing grass, Lao Zi is awesome. ch11 hugged his fingers in surprise, and he knocked Pluton Rayleigh flying with a flick of his finger. Oh, why didn't you tell me earlier? I almost got hit with that punch just now. ch11 communicated with the system in a joyful mood. If the system hadn't temporarily issued a warning, saying that an ordinary punch could kill Rayleigh, who was not covered in the armed color, otherwise Rayleigh would no longer be able to see the human form. The system ignored ch11. Uncle Lay, Are you still angry? There are still 2 punches, don't rest, stand up and kick. ch11 glanced at Rayleigh, who was covered with sawdust on the ground, and said a little arrogantly, he has already collected a large part of his strength just now, and he should not be injured. After a few breaths, there is no movement. ch11's face changed. If FK gets disabled, what's the difference between helping the old lady cross the road? Even if Lao Zi is Ma Yun, he can't help Rayleigh. The main Rayleigh is a positive character and must not die. Otherwise no one will see it. Wow! Suddenly, Rayleigh on the ground finally moved, and his hands were hard to hold up, and a lot of sawdust and dust attached to his body shook off. Even so, Rayleigh still looked very embarrassed. Whoa, whoa, whoa! An astonishing scene happened. The wine and sawdust scattered on the ground were restored instantly like a time replay. Rayleigh's hair was scattered and he couldn't see his face clearly. He walked silently to the bar, took out a bottle of snow beer, and unscrewed the beer cap with a little effort. A bottle of snowflakes was eaten in an instant. Rayleigh seemed to recover a little, pulled back his loose silver hair, and showed a kindly little face to ch11. When ch11 saw this twilight, the corners of his eyes twitched slightly, and he thought to himself, no. This guy is going to do something. Only to hear Rayleigh smile and say, I work here, can I drink alcohol for free? ch11 immediately changed his style of painting when he heard this. He raised his right arm and roared with sharp teeth, FKU. Don't even think about it, you still have to work under me for 83 years. Ha ha ha. Cough cough. Oops, I haven't been this young in a long time. Boss, what's your name? Rayleigh asked with a smile while covering his slightly dented mouth. He is now very curious about how ch11 did it. With that finger, he could fully feel that what ch11 was emitting was pure flesh body power, with no haki or fruit power attached. The power was the best in the world. Shocking! Thrilling shock! ch11 returned to the bar with a gloomy face. He didn't expect Rayleigh to be such a scoundrel, so he just conceded defeat and surrendered. Do people really know how to seek good luck and avoid evil when they are old? ch11 opened a bottle of snowflake from the shelf and pushed it to Rayleigh as compensation. My name is ch11, the one behind you is Ulquiera Sifur, he is the boss's royal delivery man. You are now the second clerk of this beautiful bar, and congratulations to you, you have become the president of Ben, the founding heroes of the country together. Don't look at the size of the bar now, but in the future, Lao Zi is going to become a pirate who opens a casino in Marie Joyce and pilots a plane at the Marine headquarters W.Ba. A business king. ch11 said in a slightly raised tone, but his mind was immersed in the beautiful blueprint that the system had planned for him. Every time he thought of this, ch11 felt a burst of fire in his heart. Rayleigh took the beer with a smile, savoring it carefully, completely ignoring what ch11 said. He only felt that ch11 had the same domineering president fan as Roger, and unconsciously wanted to get close, mainly to stay here to be able to try this amazing beer for free. Good wine. The injury doesn't hurt so much, it's amazing. Rayleigh looked at the bottle, smiling contentedly, as if he had found a treasure. In this way, ch11 has a free local expert as a clerk. Although it is unrealistic to ask Rayleigh to do chores, it is still possible to let him be a security guard. The 3 of them usually pull a few chairs and sit at the door, basking in the sunday, knocking melon seeds, pulling and pushing. How can it be so leisurely? The protagonist is a man who wants to become a business emperor. See the next chapter, Rayleigh's Nemesis. P.S. For collection. Ask for flowers. Ask for evaluation. Ask for a reward. Chapter 17 Rayleigh's Enemy. For collection. Ask for flowers. Ask for evaluation. Ask for a reward. ch11 simply arranged a place for Rayleigh to rest. The sun had already set, and ch11 didn't care about Ulquira. After a night of silence, the 28th day came in the blink of an eye. Today is the penultimate day for ch11 to complete the small goal, but he is not panic at all. As expected, the Whitebeard group will come to Sabayati tomorrow, and the time is completely in time. The three of them pulled 3 chairs and sat at the door of the bar, basking in the sun, nibbling on melon seeds, and looking leisurely. Even Ulquira silently closed his eyes, calmly feeling the sunlight of another world. Kaz! Kaz! Just hearing one after another noisy voices ringing in the left and right ears, ch11 and Rayleigh, each holding a handful of melon seeds in their hands, chatted while knocking. Ulquira opened his eyes silently, and glanced at the two with gloomy eyes, as if to express his inner dissatisfaction, but who made ch11 the boss? He had to silently return to the bar and stay away from these two guys. ch11! You've been with Roger for so long, do you know what his abilities are? ch11 was basking in the sun while squatting on the sunflower seeds with one hand. He was very warm and comfortable. Anyway, he was idle. It would be good to learn about the history of the pirate world with Rayleigh, who knows everything, and it would also be very helpful for future business development. As for Rayleigh on one side, the sun shines brightly on his silver beard and hair, and with those wise eyes, at first glance, he thought it was an old fairy coming to the world. Rayleigh slapped the sunflower seeds and said slowly, "Roger, he has the ability to listen to everything, it's amazing." Rayleigh smiled kindly. Although ch11 refused to tell him how the blow was done yesterday, Rayleigh could really feel ch11's similar temperament to Roger, although he always said some new words that he didn't know, but Rayleigh feels that staying with ch11 has made him a lot younger. When ch11 heard the words, he felt tasteless, and then asked again, "It's already been marked on Baidu Encyclopedia. I'm asking him what ability he has other than listening to all things." Baidu Encyclopedia, he, what new product is this? Rayleigh laughed and snorted, seemingly reluctant to say it. Yes, how could he betray his late brother? ch11 waved his hand and stopped asking about Roger. He changed the question, which is probably what many pirate fans want to know. You should know what happened in that blank 100 years. Is Raftel Island really in the New World? ch11 asked with a smile, watching the change in Rayleigh's expression from the corner of his eyes. When he asked if Raftel, the final island, was in the New World, Rayleigh's indifferent face suddenly froze, and then dissipated. He disappeared very well, but ch11, who is a businessman, has a basic skill to observe his words, and this subtle change of Rayleigh has already revealed a lot of useful information. I don't want to say it, I don't want to say it. This boss doesn't want any big secret treasure. ch11 waved his hands and said nonchalantly, and Rayleigh also laughed dryly along the steps. The two hit the seeds again. ch11 looked at Rayleigh from the corner of his eyes from time to time. Sure enough, everyone in the pirate world was deceived by Roger. The final island, Raftel, is not in the New World, he said at all. If it is really in the New World, the world government is looking for this island with the correct historical text. And it took 700 years to build the huge bridge connecting the islands. Why start in East Blue and it seems to be still being built today? ch11 thought to himself, but this is not his main line. Just to understand, by the way, this book will discuss the relationship between the Great Kingdom of One Piece 800 years ago and the 20 Kings, an ancient weapon while developing business. History, combined with the original animation and comics, is well founded everywhere. The atmosphere was calm, and the leisurely time of the morning passed just like that. Just as ch11 was about to return to the bar, a group of soldiers and horses came from afar, billowing with smoke, and the metal trembling of armors colliding from time to time. So many people, it feels like they're coming for us. ch11 looked at it suspiciously, while Rayleigh on the side glanced silently, and then said with a smile showing a row of white teeth, "There are a lot of guests here. Boss, please receive them first, and I'll go in first." Lei gave ch11 a thumbs up, then left ch11 at the door as if he was the boss. "FK, this is asking an uncle to come back." ch11 couldn't help but spit it out. At the same time, the group of people in the distance also came to the bar. About 100 people surrounded the bar in a half-moon shape. ch11 looked at the attire of these people, each holding a uniform long-handled iron sword, and the body was uniformly covered with armor similar to the ancient West, especially the head. Each large iron cover only exposed a few cracks to provide vision, and everyone is very big and strong. Private army. ch11 thought to himself, but he didn't pay much attention. But what made him wonder is what these guys are doing to collect protection fees. I saw that in front of the eyes, the army of 100 people took the initiative to stand in 2 rows, making way for a road. ch11 raised his eyebrows and looked at the end of the road with some unpleasantness, and a figure gradually became clear. "Isn't it a little fancy?" ch11 sneered. I saw this figure walking forward, and the appearance gradually became clearer, wearing a purple skirt, dyed light blue long hair, wearing a clown hat, funny pentagonal sunglasses, a face full of stubble, with a very proud look. Pfft! Shemale ha 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 ha! When ch11 saw this man's face clearly, his complexion suddenly changed, and he laughed with a red face. Immediately, hundreds of armored soldiers were shocked, and the sharp iron sword in their hands pointed at ch11. Disco came to the front of the army and stood still. Seeing ch11 laughing at the door of the bar, his face turned red with anger. As the #1 auction house general manager of Sabayati Archipelago, and the #1 human trafficker, he was actually made fun of by a country boy as an adult demon. Simply unforgivable. Stinky boy, keep your dog's eyes open to see who Laozi is. Laozi is the villain of Sabayati Archipelago. Disco roared. In fact, he himself does not have any strength, just an ordinary person, just caught up with Doflamingo's line and became a money-making machine under Ming Ji, and he himself also relied on Ming Ji to support him. Sabayati's mix of wind and water rises. Hearing Disco's scolding, ch11's laughter gradually stopped and his face was calm. Scolding me, isn't this an abuser? Never allow it. ch11 secretly said in his heart, but he is not a person who kills indiscriminately. What are you doing here in Laozi's territory with so many people, you ugly bastard? ch11 asked indifferently. Ugly. Ugly. Stinky boy. Give me the Mingli. Then I'll put a special collar on you, and let you know the end of insulting my Disco-sama. Disco roared angrily. It has been a long time since no one dared to be so rude in front of him. He can't wait to put ch11 in front of him on a slave collar and torture him severely. Mingli. ch11 wondered. I only have Rayleigh PS. Rayleigh just plays a role in promoting the plot. A branch will be opened soon, and new products will come out. For collection. Ask for flowers. Ask for evaluation. Ask for a reward. Chapter 18. Open a branch. For collection. Ask for flowers. Ask for a reward. ch11 was a little puzzled, and then combined with the smiling face of Rayleigh just now, he suddenly realized something. This group of people is likely to be Rayleigh's enemy. ch11 turned around and glanced at Rayleigh in the bar, and saw that he was holding a newspaper and silently studying it. turning a deaf ear to the outside world. "Oh! You said Mingli. Hey Mingli! A shemale is coming to you." ch11 quickly sold Rayleigh, turned around and shouted in mock surprise, while Rayleigh stared blankly at ch11 at the door, and then burst out laughing. "Ha ha ha, how can this method of selling teammates be exactly the same as Roger? Ha 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 ha." Rayleigh didn't care about these people outside, stood up indifferently from his position, and walked to ch11's side with a smile on his face. Before ch11 could say anything, the disco on the opposite side exclaimed, pointing at Rayleigh with a big finger, acting a little funny. "Mingli! You are really here, you robbed your buyer and scattered a lot of his money. It has already had a great impact on the reputation of this auction house. Today I'm here to catch you and go back to kill the chickens and show the monkeys." Disco scolded as if he had a deep hatred with Rayleigh. Speaking of this, ch11 on the side also understood what was going on. It was similar to what he had guessed when he saw Rayleigh before. Rayleigh must have robbed the slave owner and ran away. "When I got to where I couldn't take shelter from the limelight, I entered my own shop." It turned out to be the general manager of the disco at the auction house. "Do you have any business to introduce to me today?" ch11 looked at Rayleigh pretending to be surprised, as if he had seen an acquaintance, and greeted the aggressive disco army on the opposite side. Hearing the meaning of their words, it seemed that they usually colluded. "Ming Li! Stop pretending, this time the guy you robbed has a devil fruit on him. It must be on you. Hand it over!" Disco shouted in a shrill voice, and quickly turned a few circles in place, posing an arrogant but arrogant look. Rayleigh has always maintained a wise and indifferent smile, and ch11 on the side twitched the corners of his eyes. This guy actually has devil fruit on him. "Turn in. Must be handed in." "Well, disco manager, are you talking about this again?" I saw Rayleigh smiled secretly, and took out a purple magic pattern incense from the cloak behind him, revealing it to everyone's eyes. Immediately, the arrogant disco's eyes burst out with greed. Even the hundreds of soldiers around him couldn't help taking a deep breath. The iron sword in his hand also loosened. With the treasure of the sea in the hands of Rayleigh. And ch11, who is close at hand, is touched by the light in his eyes. It has been almost a month since he came to the world of pirates. The devil fruit that he once fantasized about is now in front of him. "What are you asking for?" But ch11, who was a traveler, knew that the real strong would not choose to eat it, and from the shape of the devil fruit in front of him, ch11 could conclude that it was just an ordinary Zoan fruit. Ding! Detected Zoan devil fruit worth 100 million Baileys. It is suggested that Mr. Ye collect it as a reserve fund for opening a branch. Suddenly, the noisy system prompt sounded, and ch11's soul trembled slightly. "FK, with it, what small goals have I accomplished? I can open a branch today." ch11 was overjoyed. Rayleigh seemed to be enjoying the surprised eyes of the people in front of him. With a smile on his face, his wise eyes scrutinized everyone, but he didn't see. ch11 silently walked behind him, held his breath, and carefully stretched out raised his palm from behind him, probing to devil fruit. Whoosh! Boom! ch11 moved extremely fast, grabbed it and ran away, slamming the door of the bar. Suddenly, outside the bar, the air froze. Everyone's expressions froze, only to see Rayleigh's hands empty in front of him, and the black line on his forehead getting longer and longer. A cold wind blows. The disco gang on the opposite side suddenly exploded with anger. Hundreds of soldiers were instantly restless and cursed. And Disco himself stomped his feet in anger. He has been in Sabayati for so long and finally got a good position, and he has always wanted a devil fruit to break away from the ranks of ordinary people. Now that he is about to get it, he has been snatched away by a stinky brat. Chop him! Chop him! Demolish this bar for me! Take back devil fruit! Disco stood on the spot and roared wildly, to be played by ch11 again, it is unforgivable. Tread! 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 Kill! 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 I saw 100 warriors carrying iron swords in a frantic rush. The heavy armors collided with each other and made a terrifying metallic vibrato. The half-moon-shaped battle circle is shrinking rapidly. As for Rayleigh at the entrance of the bar, his forehead was covered in cold sweat, not because of these bastards, but because ch11's actions were too counterintuitive. Boss, I know you're right behind the door, it's useless if you take devil fruit. Give it back to me. I can still sell a lot of Baileys. Rayleigh's calm appearance was a little flustered by ch11. He originally planned to drink the magical snow beer at ch11, and then sell the devil fruit and pay off the debt. At least 9,000 are left. Dowan Bailey, I can go to commercial GR again, I didn't expect it, I didn't expect it. It was actually taken away by this guy ch11. And ch11, who was only one door away from Rayleigh, looked at devil fruit in his hands with a smile, and when he heard Rayleigh's shouting outside the door, he didn't want to pay attention to him at all, and said lightly, as an employee of this store, you should hand over everything on your body, but this boss is not a profiteer. If you are a first-time offender, I will take care of this devil fruit, and I'll get rid of those guys, otherwise, how would you do business? ch11 returned to the bar with devil fruit contentedly, and looked at it curiously. Even Ulquiera couldn't help but leaned over curiously, looked at it with indifferent eyes, and didn't speak. ch11 glanced at Xiaowu and asked casually, want to eat? Rubbish! I just listened to Ulquiera said lightly and walked away silently. ch11 rolled his eyes at him angrily and murmured, Che, I don't know the goods, this is the funds for Laozi to open a branch. When Rayleigh outside the door heard ch11's words, he felt helpless and had a gloomy expression on his face. It looks like I'm going to come back, I can't reveal this sentence, it really is a famous saying. Rayleigh shook his head, feeling the murderous aura around him, and suddenly, his body was swept away. The slump on Rayleigh's body was swept away, his face was gloomy, his glasses were glowing with a strange white light, and his aura suddenly skyrocketed. I saw him turn around slowly, with a momentum like a silver-haired lion waking up. Hundreds of armored warriors with sharp blades have long been irritated by ch11, and their aura is extremely fierce. In addition, they are the villain-level private army on the Sabayati archipelago. Their combat power is enough to surpass ordinary pirates. You must know that this is the richest archipelago in the pirate world. Those who can join the army here will definitely not be weak. And at the disco at the rear of the army, that funny costume is really uncomplimentable, I saw him laughing wildly, and he seemed to have seen Rayleigh and ch11's bar being tyrannically killed by his army of 100 people. He damn Mingli and that stinky bastard. You guys are too fluffy, and I can't even carry a knife, Master Disco. Humph. This 100-man army is Doflaming, one of the Shishibukai in the world today. The army that my brother gave me when he came to Sabayati himself. Everyone's fighting power is comparable to Sergeant Marine, what are you going to use to compete with me? Hey. Disco is very arrogant in the rear, blasting the awesomeness of himself. Indeed, on the Sabayati archipelago next to naval headquarters, there are many powerful pirates, but the marine is weak, but the pirates dare not make trouble, and the private army has been well developed here, especially the disco. The army, the strength can be ranked first on the Sabayati ground. This is also the reason why he dares to be so reckless. I saw Rayleigh's gloomy face, facing the raging army without any momentum to fight. Buzz! Rayleigh's eyes suddenly condensed, and a violent momentum erupted from between his eyebrows. The world instantly turned grey, and the surrounding atmosphere was buzzing. The eyes are like sword lights and stars, and even through the glasses, they can't stop the terrifying aura of those hungry eagles. Quiet. Incredibly quiet. The picture was like a slow-motion playback, and I saw the hundreds of warriors who were waving sharp blades and were about to touch Rayleigh. The body and the air around him seemed to be frozen, and a coercion that invaded the soul came directly like a turbulent wave. A pair of frightened pupils trembled violently and finally became sluggish and lost consciousness. Wow! Wow! The swords in the hands of the hundreds of soldiers fell weakly to the ground and made a trembling sound. Then, the soldiers who were stunned and fainted also fell to the ground with a bang, and the dust splashed. The disco at the back was completely stunned, as if he had lost his voice, as if he was numb, unable to speak or strength, and his funny sunglasses were also tilted to one side. A strange event happened suddenly, so that he was in a half-demented state as if he had been electrocuted. Step, 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 step. I saw that Rayleigh walked forward steadily, passing through the bodies of the soldiers on the ground. This picture looked like a lonely king returning to the battlefield, and the disco on the opposite side watched in shock as Rayleigh kept coming, and was frightened. The Asku squatted on the ground, and now he was speechless by the shock of Rayleigh using Conqueror's haki. This is still the coding craftsman who loves to drink. That's haki just now. Conqueror's haki that only a strong person like the young master can have. Why? Why does he have it too? Disco howled wildly in his heart, and desperately wanted to make a sound to ease his inner fear. But he was horrified to find that his body was shaking like crazy. Can't stop. Tread. Rayleigh walked in front of the disco, standing proudly, looking down at the disco on the ground with only the corner of his eye. The trembling body of the disco on the ground shook again. Looking up at the gloomy Rayleigh with straight eyes, he was extremely horrified. Clatter! A cluster of flames rose. Rayleigh lit a cigarette, silently held it in his mouth, exhaled a mouthful of smoke, revealing that it was slightly drooping. The mirror was glowing with white light, and the discoton on the ground felt a heartbeat. His face was pale from the spasms of his heart, and he didn't know what Rayleigh was going to do or what his own fate would be next. Hey! I'll let someone in to take a cigarette. If I come back in 10 minutes and see the soldiers in this place, don't blame our boss for not giving face. After that, Rayleigh lit a cigarette and silently knocked on the bar door and walked in. Disco, who stayed in place, watched Rayleigh leave with horror on his face. After a long time, he came back to his senses, and he didn't care about the hundreds of soldiers who fell to the ground, and quickly escaped from 19gr. Back at Rayleigh in the bar, the first thing he did was come to ch11 with a kind smile and didn't speak. ch11 in the bar didn't even bother to pay attention to him, and slapped the seeds on his own, with a leisurely expression on his face. If ch11 knew that Rayleigh used his name to cover up outside just now, he would probably explode immediately. The protagonist is a businessman. The most important thing for businessmen is reputation. How can people mess around without credibility? Rayleigh watched ch11's hand knocking the melon seeds one after another, and sighed inwardly, this ch11 skill is far superior to any young man I have ever seen in my life. Finally, Rayleigh couldn't bear it any longer. For that devil fruit, he could only bow his head to ch11's forces. You must know that this has to do with his quality of life this year. If time can go back more than 20 years, he is still the deputy captain of Roger, the pirate king, sitting on countless wealth, and Paramecia's devil fruit is even more dismissive. Things are right and wrong. Huluo Pingyang was bullied by the power. Little brother, my devil fruit. He you see. Rayleigh asked with a smile. I saw ch11 in the bar indifferently glanced at Rayleigh, put down the melon seeds in his hand, and said lightly, what devil fruit? Why didn't I see it? Rayleigh stared at ch11 blankly, his jaw was about to drop. This boss is indeed the blackest in history, no one. Rayleigh's heart is so depressed. You can't beat it, you can't escape, it's impossible to work, forget it, just stay here for now. Bar. P.S. I feel that the progress is a little slow, I want to speed up the progress. Chapter 19 Heaven on Earth. For collection. Ask for flowers. Ask for evaluation. Ask for a reward. Seeing that Rayleigh was no longer making fun of himself, ch11 silently communicated with the system. System. I have a zoan fruit here, I'll sell it to you at cost. If the system can recycle these devil fruits and other treasures and exchange them for Bailey, then it will be easy to achieve the small goal of each month by yourself. Thousands of stores opened in 3 years, financing and listing in 5 years. Punch Alley. Kick Wanda. It can be recycled. Please put the fruit on a flat place, Mr. Yet. ch11 was overjoyed, but he didn't expect that he could actually recycle and exchange money. ch11 took out the devil fruit from under the bar and placed it on a flat place, only to see a faint blue light curtain popping out in front of him, similar to a scanning beam. I saw that devil fruit gradually turned into a light spot and disappeared, and at the same time, a system prompt sound appeared in ch11's mind. Zoan devil fruit, it weighs $2 or $3 a pound, and the recovery was successful. 100 million Baileys have been deposited into the store opening reserve. Now Mr. Ye has a total of 103 million Baileys. Ding! Congratulations to Mr. Ye for activating the industry sector, please select the industry you need to activate. Afterwards, the Bailey Mall appeared in front of ch11, and an activation box appeared under the original grey-black industrial templates. Bailey was already needed. ch11 glanced at it and found that his 100 million Baileys were only enough to light up the tobacco industry, and lighting up the cigarette industry just needed 10 million Baileys, which was the small goal for the first month. ch11 didn't hesitate and chose to activate it directly. Now that the money is not bad, even if it lights up, there are still more than 90 million Baileys left. And all this money is controlled by ch11. Congratulations to Mr. Ye for lighting up the tobacco industry template, the system will reward you with 100 points. Ding! The system detects that the host has opened the tobacco and alcohol section. It is recommended that the host go to the commercial plot immediately and establish a storefront. ch11 was overjoyed when he heard the words, finally taking the first step. ch11 walked silently to the middle of the empty bar, glanced at the two of them, and said, due to the poor management of the store, I now announce that the beautiful bar has officially closed down. Ulquiera at the window glanced at ch11 lightly, while Rayleigh raised his brows and said to himself, what is the kid brewing? Afterwards, ch11 opened his mouth and said, I decided to open a new store in the bustling area of Sabayati Islands. Rayleigh, as a local, you will take us to choose a suitable store in a while. Rayleigh sighed silently, it turned out to be opening a new store. After sorting out their equipment, the three locked the door of the bar, left the impossible zone, and headed to the bustling 40GR under the leadership of Rayleigh. Since Sabayati Archipelago is the only way to the New World, there are many pirates, businessmen, and bounty hunters gathered here. The island is composed of many trees, the ground is the root of the tree, and bubbles will emerge from the ground. When walking out of the impossible zone, ch11 first saw the prosperous side of the most prosperous Sabayati archipelago in the One Piece world. There are bizarre and gorgeous bubble buildings everywhere. Vendors selling all kinds of novelty toys, adults and children walked happily on the road, and everyone's face was full of smiles, which formed a strong contrast with the barren chaos of the unreachable. In the face of these, Rao is Ulquira, the Espada, watching these novel things from afar, although his face is still paralyzed. Little brother, in front is the real estate management office of Sabayati land. If you buy a storefront, where can you buy a business license and land? Rayleigh drank wine with a silver jug as he walked, completely unable to see that this was the once world-famous Pluton Rayleigh. ch11 glanced at the end of the street, said goodbye to the two with a smile, and walked in. After a long while, ch11 came out with 2 licenses. As soon as he came out, he saw Ulquira's green eyes staring at a colorful bubble slowly rising from the ground, and Rayleigh was sitting casually on the street corner, drinking wine. Let's go. Check out our store. ch11 waved 2 licenses in his hand and said with a smile, one is a business license and the other is a real estate license. The 3 then rushed to the address on the property certificate without stopping. This is a commercial street that sells souvenirs, and there are merchants from all over the world wearing fancy clothes and young and beautiful women buying clothes. And ch11's store is in the middle of this road, which is a very good location. Taking out the key from the real estate administration, ch11 pushed open the dusty door. The store covers an area of 100 square meters, and there are many crystal shelves decorated on the surrounding walls. It seems that the previous owner of this store is selling some high-end goods. Looking at the empty shop and the pedestrians coming and going outside, ch11 couldn't help but start preparing for a big job. System, fill it up. ch11 communication system, the system began to show its strengths. In a few breaths, the dust in the entire store disappeared inexplicably, giving people a refreshing feeling in an instant, and the original decoration of various crystals made it even more obvious. It is magnificent, and passers-by glanced curiously. Immediately afterwards, bottles of snow beer, Tsingtao beer, and pineapple beer appeared on the crystal shelves like magic, and the whole store was so high in the sky. Ding! Congratulations to Mr. Ye for winning the first piece of land. Please define the name of the shop. Suddenly, the system sound came. ch11 was stunned for a moment. Name. Afterwards, the system explained to ch11. It turned out that when he was in the bar, he announced that Beauty had closed down, so now he has to rename it. ch11 glanced at Rayleigh and Ulquira. His dark eyes rolled, thinking. The name of the new store must be Hacky Strong, and it must have the aura that I am the only one who swallows the sky and the ground. Suddenly, ch11's mind flashed. It's called Heaven and Earth. Ding! The name of the store is successful. Please enter the Points Mall to exchange tobacco products. The opened products can be sold together. ch11 opened the Point Exchange Mall and found that he now has a total of 112 points, but there are quite a few items that can be exchanged. After a careful look, ch11 used up all the points to exchange for the following 3 types of cigarettes. Yuxi, each price, 15 W Bailey. Efficacy, let the brain reach 10% comfort. Dakianman, each price, 20 W Bailey. Efficacy, let the brain reach 50% comfort. Soft China, each price, 50 W Bailey. Efficacy, 100% make the brain feel comfortable. Soon, dozens of cigarettes of different colors appeared on the gorgeous crystal shelves. Rayleigh, who had been silent for a while, saw this, and immediately became interested. "Little brother! This! What are these?" Rayleigh asked excitedly. ch11 smiled without saying a word, and grabbed the most expensive soft Chinese from the shelf. Starting with the packaging box of Yin Bang Bang, a familiar feeling came to my mind. ch11 knows that there are a lot of cigarettes in the pirate world. Just like the cigars smoker smokes, they don't even have a brand. They are obviously poor. When there are more customers, the points will also increase. ch11 just exchanged a Cuban cigar and came here. Kill the major tobacco industries in the world of pirates. P.S. Thanks to Wang Mingming for the 100-point reward. Chapter 20 Magical Soft China. For collection. Ask for flowers. Ask for evaluation. Ask for a reward. ch11 unpacked the box, took out a pack of delicate red cigarettes, and threw it into Rayleigh's arms at will, and then took a pack for himself. With a curious look on his face, Rayleigh repeatedly looked at the delicate soft china in his hands, feeling very novel. "Little brother! What is this thing? The palace above is so magnificent. It's soft to start with, there must be a lot of articles inside." Rayleigh's eyes were full of light, although he didn't know what he was holding, but seeing ch11's smug look on his face, it must be something magical. ch11 glanced at the cigarette package in his hand lightly, and said, "This palace is called Tianmen in my hometown, and my pictures are usually hung on the tower." Rayleigh looked at ch11 in disbelief. He didn't expect ch11 to have such a lofty position in his hometown, and even his picture was hung on Tiananmen Square. ch11 looked at Rayleigh repeatedly but saw no movement, his face was bitter. "Tear it up." ch11 tore open the plastic wrapping with smooth movements, while Rayleigh glanced at him and followed ch11 step by step to unpack. Cigarette. When Rayleigh saw the small white dots inside, he immediately recognized it and made a puzzled sound. "Is there something magical about this cigarette?" Rayleigh looked at ch11 with a bit of doubt, and saw ch11's movements were skillful and smooth, shaking the cigarette case, a soft Chinese stick in his mouth and lit. Hhhh. Rayleigh saw ch11 take a deep breath, the expression on his face kept changing, and finally he exhaled a circle of smoke, which seemed very comfortable. Seeing ch11's appearance like this, Rayleigh, who had tasted the magic of snow beer, was sure that this cigarette is definitely a great article. Then, he also took out a cigarette and lit it. Rayleigh looked strange, the entrance was not the slightest strange, and then, Rayleigh took a deep breath, the sparks of the cigarette butt shone red. Sudden. Rayleigh's expression froze, his wise eyes stared at ch11 incredulously, while ch11, slanting a cigarette, looked at the shocked Rayleigh with a smile. "It's good to smoke. I've never smoked such a high-end cigarette before." ch11 felt relieved in his heart. Indeed, when Rayleigh took a deep breath, a cool feeling flowed from the mouth down the throat into the lungs, the bursting refreshing feeling exploded in the body, and went straight to the sky, all the worries and annoyances in the mind were eliminated in an instant. Clean. Immediately afterwards, Rayleigh took another quick puff. Sigh. That burst of cool feeling is like a Daigo empowerment, flushing the negative dirt in the brain, and the whole person becomes brighter. Rayleigh felt like he was years younger all of a sudden. Thinking has also become very clear. "Little brother. This smoke." Rayleigh was incomparably shocked, looking at ch11 with a faint smile, "Another magical smoke comparable to snow beer. And it's still for sale." Following Rayleigh's walk in the rivers and lakes for so many years, this kind of product that can improve the quality of the human body will inevitably lead to fatal disasters. Rayleigh looked at ch11 with a horrified expression, thinking that he has a power 100 times stronger than himself, there is nothing to be afraid of, and that he can come up with such a miraculous thing, there must be a world-class powerful organization behind it. How is it I've never smoked such a high-end cigarette? Today, the store opened a big deal, and I will give you this packet of soft Chinese. ch11 said boldly, it's just a pack of cigarettes. As a business emperor, he still needs to have the means to win people's hearts. When Rayleigh heard this, he was overjoyed. He didn't expect ch11 to be so reasonable. Then, Rayleigh saw that ch11 silently took out a few price tags and placed them on the shelves one by one. Yuxi, A15W Bailey. Rayleigh suddenly twitched in his heart. Immediately after, ch11 took out the second price tag. Dakianman, A20W Bailey. Rayleigh trembled in his hand, looked down at the soft china in his hand, and watched ch11 take out the third piece with a horrified expression. Soft china, A50W Bailey. This guy. Should I accept this cigarette or not? Rayleigh's heart suddenly became entangled. Soft china is a super drug for an old smoker like him. Once he is addicted, he can't quit. But according to ch11's character, he will definitely have to pay a certain price, and getting a free lunch in front of him is more difficult than capturing Marine Ford. ch11 saw the tangled look on Rayleigh's face, and immediately understood what he was thinking. Rayleigh, as an employee of this shop, why are you so afraid of the boss giving you a pack of cigarettes? Come on, here is the remaining one, take them all. ch11 smiled lightly and handed all the unpacked soft Chinese to Rayleigh, and Rayleigh took it numbly, but his heart was full of doubts. Little brother, I don't have that many Baileys. Rayleigh directly showed up. He had already experienced it once before, and he would not be pitted by ch11 again. ch11 waved his hand, and Shan said, in order to expand the influence of this shop, the boss specially appointed you, a local, as the smoking ambassador of this heaven and earth, and send out all the cigarettes in your hand, which is you today. Task, you can't come back if you can't finish it. Rayleigh is stunned, what a smoking ambassador, I am a dignified Pluton Rayleigh, if this spreads out. The business of this store will be so good that it will take off. Rayleigh went out with a soft china in his hand, and ch11 and Xiaowu were also free. Rayleigh has been in the Sabayati land incognito for 20 years, he knows all kinds of people in the casino, bar, and auction house. ch11 used his contacts to quickly get through the entire network of Sabayati land. With his own products, ch11 is confident that they will not after a few hours, all came to buy cigarettes. System, can we increase our price a little bit? ch11 has swelled, and actually dislikes the low price, but as a future business emperor, it is very good to have this kind of awareness. Of course, host can refer to the sales plan listed by the system for you. Data came into ch11's mind, and ch11 studied it carefully. During the research period, ch11's new store Heaven on Earth also attracted the attention of many passers-by and peers around. Those tourists and businessmen who wanted to come in to visit suddenly stopped when they saw the price tags on the shelves. They pointed and sneered at ch11, who would not do business and open a black shop. The spectacle of ch11 also aroused heated discussions among colleagues in the entire commercial street. In less than an hour, the notoriety of ch11 Heaven and Earth spread all over the street. Meanwhile, Marine Headquarters, Marine Ford High-Rise Meeting Room. Boom! A sound of banging the table echoed in the conference room. Sengoku, who was in the main seat, had a solemn expression. On the right side of the conference table, there were 3 Marine Admiral, and on the left, Garp and Crane, 2 Vice Admirals. The atmosphere in the conference room was solemn, and everyone fell into contemplation. The more than a dozen warships monitoring Whitebeard's group returned the news that the Moby Dick had arrived at the Fishmen Island last night. According to their progress, it is estimated that they are almost coming to Sabayati land. What attracted people like him coming to the first half of the Grand Line? Sengoku spoke with a heavy tone and an anxious look on his face. After a long time, Garp on the side said with a serious expression, "It's impossible to act suddenly without warning. Every move of someone like him involves the nerves of the whole sea. Although I don't know what he's here for, Sabayati is approaching the headquarters, an admiral must be sent to guard. I go." Opposite Garp, Sakazuki in a burgundy suit suddenly spoke up with a slightly solemn expression, but his tone was unquestionable. Vice Admiral, the Crane beside Garp, gave Sakazuki a faint look, those old eyes like the evil that can penetrate everything in the world. "Let Paul Salino go." Crane Vice Admiral said suddenly. Sengoku and Garp hesitated for a while, then nodded lightly, while Akainu glanced at Crane Vice Admiral with sharp eyes, and then sat down without speaking. "Close your eyes and rest." And Kizaru, who was wearing a yellow striped shirt, looked blank, just like a classmate who was suddenly picked by the teacher to answer a question in class. "Well, okay." Kizaru stood up lazily, put his hands on Kabuto as if he didn't wake up, and left the conference room. "Dismiss." Sengoku in the first seat said solemnly. Whitebeard's sudden action made all of them nervous. Then Akainu left, 3 Admiral had gone too, Sengoku, Garp, and Tsuru Vice Admiral all set their sights on Aokiji, who was at the back. A slight snoring echoed in the conference room. The 3 old men shook their heads in unison and walked out of the conference room silently. For collection. Ask for flowers. Ask for evaluation. Ask for a reward.